has taken over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Ferrall, coast to coast.
And we are back. Hour number 3, Ferrall Coast to Coast here on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty. Great to have everybody with us here today. Of course, every Tuesday and Wednesday, you get the extended version of the very popular SportsGrid Radio show, Carver and Lisi, with myself and Joe, weeknights 8 p.m. East, on the radio side here on Coast to Coast. So we always have a good time with that. We have a very busy final hour, Joe, and I think that we need to get right to it. NBA, let's finish this off. Me and you had a couple other games that we did not get to touch on yet. The Pistons, off of that tough loss at the Garden last night against the Knicks, are in Chicago against the Bulls. Bulls minus 10.5, 225.5. is the total here. The Pistons got anything left in the tank, Joe, on the second night of a back-to-back?
It's possible, but I would lay it with Chicago. They're rested. They're home. Maybe a big game for DeRozan tonight. What do you think? 225 and a half.
Love DeRozan.
Let's go over the 225 and a half.
Suddenly, I asked you earlier, you're going to start to jump back on these overs, and now every game's in. Over. I'm going to wait a few weeks. No. Over. Now suddenly you're back in the mix here, Joe, amazingly. The Hornets are in Milwaukee against the Bucks tonight. So the Bucks have come out of the break, Joe. A little bit of life. A couple wins, beating Minnesota, beating Philadelphia on Sunday. Laying 2 tutties, though, here in a hook. 14.5, 220.5 is the total. I'll give you this number as well, Joe. Double-digit favorites for Milwaukee. 3-12. Against the spread this year. That is the worst record in the NBA. 3-12 ATS for numbers like this. 14 and a hook.
Yeah, I would lean to the Hornets plus the points. I think Dame Time and Giannis laying a big number are gutless, along with their head coach, Doc Rivers. Never could be and step up in a big spot. So for me, give me the points and the road team.
Joe will take the points tonight with the road team. We do welcome in all of our radio affiliates for El Coast to Coast. On a Tuesday, Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty, SportsGrid Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 159, Sports Byline. Great to have everybody with us here today. The Rockets are in OKC against the Thunder. They played in Houston a couple days ago, Joe. Now they get back together in OKC. Thunder minus 9.5, 234.5 the total.
I'm going to take the over, and I'm going to take the Rockets. I think the Rockets could be well within this number tonight. I think the total is live. What was it, 234? But I think the road team is the way to go with the Prince.
I like Thunder minus the 9.5, Joe. I think they'll squash them tonight at home. They'll squash them tonight. Squash job. And finally, the Heat in Portland against the Trailblazers. So this has gone down a couple of points here, Joe. Now 7.5 for the Heat. 213.5 is the total. Of course, back-to-back for Miami. They do get Butler back tonight, and they get Rozier back tonight. Still no hero. They have a couple other guys that are going to be out with the suspension as well. I've had both sides of this here so far, Joe, in the last hour. Coach told me he loves the Heat tonight. Then Davis told me he likes the Blazers tonight. What about you?
It smells. This line smells to me. 6.5 with the Heat after they beat down the Kings. I'm going to take the points with the Trailblazers and give me the under because I think it's a half-court, ugly style type of game. Even though the Heat put up 121, we're going under and the Trailblazers. We're gonna resurrect the days of Clyde Drexler. What do you think about that?
Clyde the Glide for Joe. Clyde the Glide tonight for the Trailblazers. There you go. That's your night in the NBA. College, huge slate tonight, Joe, but I wanted to start you with this. Miami on the road at North Carolina last night. They were catching 13.5, 14.5. You even got in game at one point, and they were down 13 with 4 minutes and 20 seconds left in the game. and then a furious run by them. I think they got as close as 2, right, Joe? Was that as close as they got? And they had the ball down too as well, and they couldn't tie the game. Kid missed the layup. 75-71. North Carolina ends up winning, but no cover. So that's 2 games where Miami went down to the wire, but they just couldn't get it done after a gutless loss at home to Georgia Tech on Saturday. You backed them, Joe, and they ended up coming through for you there at the end.
Yeah, their first cover, I think, in like 5 or 6 weeks. They laid 7.5 to Georgia Tech. Cover laying 7.5. They lost the game outright. They've been gutless under Larinaga. They showed a little bark last night. They were barking, rah, rah, rah. They should have won the game. I mean, they were in position in the last minute. The kid missed the layup, thankfully, but we got the cover. That's all that matters.
That is all that matters. And you liked the under in that Baylor-TCU game, and that came through for you as well, 62-54. No good for the system play. TCU doesn't get it done, but the under gets done for you, Joe.
Well, that's because Baylor-Houston smashed me on Saturday. I got smashed with that under because that game sailed through the total because it went to OT. So I knew it was an emotional game for Baylor. They lost. They had to get back to basics, half-court offense, a little banging on the glass, a little body English. They get it done.
I want to start. I'll do the first set of games with you here, Joe, and then I'll do all the other ones after I talk to Haro because we have a lot of college basketball tonight. Here's some of the early tips. Georgetown into Villanova tonight in the Big East. This is a heavy number for Nova, which is now up to 15.5. Cincinnati's at Houston tonight, another big number, 13.5. Kentucky now getting 3.5 at Mississippi State. System play, Joe, system play. Dayton laying 10.5 against Davidson, and Syracuse minus the 1.5 at home against Vatek at a very, very healthy total there, Joe, with 150.
Yeah, I'm seeing the board very clearly, Carver. Let me just say,
I know you are.
Let me just say this. Cincinnati and Houston. Houston won that game a couple games ago. 67-62 was one of the unders in terms of the last 8 games for Houston that they actually got under that total. They tacked a 131.5. Same thing for Houston. Emotional win on the road. They come back home. They're going to be overlooking Cincinnati. Well, look at who they beat up. Iowa State, Baylor. I'm taking the 13.5 with the Bearcats. And I think the game trends to the under, but I really like Cincinnati with the points. I told you last night, I'm going to say it now. Miss State, no shot to cover against Kentucky. System play, no system play. They're going to get smashed. Kentucky's going to win that ball game going away. And my system play is Vatek over Syracuse outright plus the 150. Outright.
Outright.
Plus 105.
Outright.
Yeah.
Cincinnati team total under 58.5. For me, Joe. Cincinnati team total under 58.5 tonight. And I got to tell you, I always blind bet the system play. The unranked team favored over the ranked team at home. I think I would go against it with this Kentucky spot tonight. I kind of like Kentucky as well. I don't like doing it because I'm very steady with betting that no matter who it is. But I think I might go with you on the Wildcats and go against the system. But we'll come back tomorrow, coast to coast on the grid right after this.
It's rare in this day and age of the NBA to, miss one player and have the wheels fall off.
They're kind of hanging on to one of those final play-in tournament positions in the Eastern Conference. And there are teams like the Nets and the Bulls and the Raptors who are right in that same vicinity, who now they're looking and saying, well, if the Hawks are without a player like Trae Young, and we talk about how important he is, averaging over 26 points.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Watched the final seconds of Illinois and Penn State, and by Dave's reaction, you think you know what happened there. How about that, Dave? How about that?
We're off the rundown. Sorry. Storm the court. You beat the 12th team in the country. That's fine. Second best in the Big Ten. That's fine. We are Penn State. Look at the crew jumping. This is so much fun.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Like the Minnesota Wild were down by 2 goals today. They were down by 3 goals, actually, today at one point. And they came back and won. Like teams like, the Edmonton Oilers and the Coyote game went back and forth. The NHL really, you could argue, really is the best sport for in-game betting, where you can pull the trigger on both teams.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
The Lakers lose by double digits last night on the road in Phoenix against the Suns. The Suns get their first victory following the All-Star break, winning by 10 in covering.
Anthony Davis played 42 minutes in that game. LeBron James played 37 minutes in a loss. This is the same thing. It's like repeating this over and over and over. Sure, do you want to win these basketball games? Yes, but you sort of say to yourself, all right, at what cost do we have?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And we are back, Ferrall, coast to coast here on a Tuesday. Carver High in for Scotty, SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us. Every week, we have our sports business and legal insider, Rick Horrow from Harvard, here with us. He's also with me and Joe at night on the radio show. It's great to see him, and I'm excited, and I'll probably do more of this with him tonight on the radio show because I have a little bit more time with him then. He's got the PGA in his backyard this week with the Cognizant, formerly the Honda, at PGA National. So I'm very excited about that, Rick.
I'm very excited about it, too. I'm not going to go to all the days, but it is good to have it in the backyard. And we were on a deathbed when Honda pulled out or had to pay another 60%. They said no. And then it's good for the tour. They found Cognizant. You got an interim guy in Joey Chitwood. You got a guy in Todd Fowler. All of these folks are tour veterans. Now taking the reins from Ken Kennerly, was the former director, and moving it into kind of a good slot. Rory, as we said before, is playing. Nobody expected that. And frankly, it's a big deal. Rory's home is here, and everybody kind of complained about him not playing here. That's not his point. He doesn't need to play somewhere just for entertainment value. I know he's playing more to get ready for the Masters, and we'll see how it all shakes out. I'm really excited about the weekend.
A lot of guys in their own backyard, Ricky Fowler, Daniel Berger, et cetera, this weekend down there at PGA National. All right, Rick, let's start with this. Pay for play is here. Federal judge says the NCAA cannot enforce any NIL rules. That's going to open up a lot of things, Rick.
Well, it is totally ironic, my friend, because since the Supreme Court a few years ago said athletes are athletes and students, but they're also ought to be paid, we've had rhetoric that's gone from one end to the other. You had this situation of, well, should you be paid or not? Now this judge says you can't affect the business leverage of athletes as they enter the transfer portal. So if you cut off any dialogue between schools and corporations, like the collectives would be doing if they're forced to, then it's a violation of antitrust and restraint of trade because these guys are athletes and professionals. They deserve to make as much money as they can, and you can't stand in their way. Boy, you match that opinion up against an opinion of 5 years ago, and you're standing on your head.
There was two things, Rick, that I was definitely going to talk to you about this week, whether you had them on the list or not. And thankfully, they are both on the list. And number one is the NFL salary cap and the massive jump that it's going to take. The biggest jump that it's ever had, and opens up a lot of things for these teams that were right on the cap that now suddenly have an extra $30 million that they're going to be able to deal with here as free agency gets ready to open in a couple of weeks.
Each one of the 32 markets are saying, what a magnificent management you guys did, because all of a sudden you found $30 million. Well, so did everybody else. And by the way, it's $74 million of benefits per team plus the $255, and you're nearly $330 million a team. $30 million a team more than they thought they had or used to have. That's important. Dolphins are going to sign Tua. Everybody applies to his own storyline how they're going to use $30 million. Let me tell you who wins more than anybody else. Chris Jones, Josh Allen, the Kirk Cousins, all of the folks who are free agents now have 32 teams if they satisfy a particular need. None of those teams is going to say we don't have the money to do it.
No, it does not. It's going to be probably going to make it much more interesting. Not that it's never not interesting. The NFL, like the NBA, has found a way to make basically a week in March their own when it comes to free agency moves and signings, that it'll be fun either way. The other thing was this baseball uniform thing. And, Rick, I got to tell you, baseball just can never get out of its own way. Like, they changed a lot of rules last year. I think at the end of the day, people were happy with them. There's still some tweaks here and there, but they can never not have some kind of controversy. And now it's these uniforms, which not only, I don't think it's great for the fans because you've seen all the side-by-sides of every team's uniform from last year to this year, and they just look worse. And then you even got the players complaining with the pants. They got all... Rick, what are they doing with the uniforms? Why can't they get something so simple right?
Hey, this is a marvelous time of year. It feels like Halloween a little bit early. You've got underwear week in the NFL as everybody heads to Indianapolis for the combine. And now you have see-through uniforms in Major League Baseball. So Fanatics and Nike got together and concocted some of the worst-looking stuff we've ever seen. And frankly, it's now reminding us of 2006. Remember what happened there, where you had these synthetic basketballs that kind of melt in your hand. And the Players Association said, not on my watch, to talk about Mutombo's line. We got the same issues now with baseball. And it is so different because this is not an economic issue. This is an aesthetic and a dignity issue. So all I can say is they better solve it quickly.
The U.S. sports betting industry sets a record with nearly $11 billion. That's billion with a B, Rick. 2023 revenue. The money just continues to pile up.
Only 44.5% increase over the year before. That is incredible. Well, why? First of all, the winning percentage of the sports books is up about 10%. Sports books tighten the rules. The promotional betting isn't as prevalent. That therefore, the new guys are there. They got to pay their own way. But the other thing is Maine, Massachusetts, Kentucky, Nebraska, Ohio all entered the market in 2023. More states, more people, and the old reliables, obviously New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, all there. Big numbers will continue to increase.
No, they certainly will. The Dodgers were already a huge brand, one of the top 10, top 15 worth franchises in all of sports. Now you add in, Rick, all this international stardom they have with Ohtani and with Yamamoto. I'm guessing the Dodgers, not just in evaluation, but in all the eyes that are going to be on them, even more through the roof.
End of last weekend, first opening preseason game, 82% of the tickets were purchased by out-of-state visitors. And so the Dodgers are the thing. I personally hope they fall flat on their face And everybody realizes money can't buy happiness. Guess what? Money can buy happiness, and you're going to see them later this year, unfortunately.
Ohtani homered today, by the way, in his first game in spring training with the Dodgers. A little Oppo taco for him to left center field. Quite the blast. And then he was out of the game, of course, to go do his stretching. The next NHL expansion franchise fee, $2 billion or more? I mean, Rick, and this is like a sidetrack to this. Like, can we also figure out what we're doing with Arizona before we start giving more expansion teams? Can we figure out that situation too?
No, because it's part of the same process. And by the way, Winnipeg, while we're at it, because that's also a team that's having some problems. But Gary Bettman is the longest-standing commissioner in the Major League Sports world. He's also a friend, but he really knows how to play markets and handle expansion. And so remember, the Knights were at $500 million in 17, the Kraken $650 in 21, and he says he has an interview. He invites the guy from Hockey News to come in, and he plants how about $2.5 billion? Well, it's a notional amount. What does that mean? That means he's going to squeeze as hard as he can. And you've got Salt Lake City, Charlotte, Kansas City, Houston. So they're all intertwined. Does one get a relocation franchise and another one get a new franchise? Maybe. But with Gary Bettman on top of this, you know that the number is going to be higher than ever before.
Later on tonight, Rick, when you join us on Carver and Lisi, we'll talk about the match last night under the lights. We'll talk about NASCAR's numbers for the Daytona 500 and more. Rick Horrow, our sports business and legal insider, here on Ferrall Coast to Coast. We're back, SportsGrid Radio, right after this.
It's rare in this day and age of the NBA to, miss one player and have the wheels fall off.
They're kind of hanging on to one of those final play-in tournament positions in the Eastern Conference. And there are teams like the Nets and the Bulls and the Raptors who are right in that same vicinity, who now they're looking and saying, well, if the Hawks are without a player like Trae Young, and we talk about how important he is, averaging over 26 points.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Watch the final seconds of Illinois and Penn State, and by Dave's reaction, you think you know what happened there. How about that, Dave? How about that?
We're off the rundown. Sorry. Storm the court. You beat the 12th team in the country. That's fine. Second best in the Big Ten. That's fine. We are Penn State. Look at the crew jumping. This is so much fun.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Like the Minnesota Wild were down by 2 goals today. They were down by 3 goals, actually, today at one point. And they came back and won. Like teams like, the Edmonton Oilers and the Coyote game went back and forth. The NHL really, you could argue, really is the best sport for in-game betting, where you can pull the trigger on both teams.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
The Lakers lose by double digits last night on the road in Phoenix against the Suns. The Suns get their first victory following the All-Star break, winning by 10 in covering.
Anthony Davis played 42 minutes in that game. LeBron James played 37 minutes in a loss. This is the same thing. It's like repeating this over and over and over. Sure, do you want to win these basketball games? Yes, but you sort of say to yourself, all right, at what cost do we have?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And we are back, Ferrall, coast to coast, here on a Tuesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have you all with us. All right, Joe, I got to finish the rest of these college basketball games, and then I will let you dive in to all the NFL news and notes that I have for you. But first, you're seeing the board very clearly, you told me, in College Rack recently. We already went over a few of those games. And I was saying to you as we went to break before, Rick, you know how I'm pretty, I don't deviate from that system really ever. The unranked team against the ranked.
You're nervous.
I just feel, I just watching, maybe it's watching them against Alabama on Saturday and how I just don't see Mississippi State scoring with them. Like, I know Kentucky plays no D, plays zero, but I just don't think Mississippi State's got the firepower, honestly, to be able to go blow for blow with them. So that's why, Joe, I'm kind of thinking about it.
They don't have the fire in the belly, like I told you. The fire in the belly.
I feel like going away from it, and I like that over in the Syracuse Virginia Tech game. Virginia Tech Syracuse, that 153.5. I think they'll probably sail through that. Those Syracuse games will go way over. It's a very big game for Pitt tonight, Joe. DeCourcy was talking to me about this earlier. Pitt's one of those teams that's kind of in that last four out right now when it comes to the NCAA tournament, could really use a big road win in conference, and they have an opportunity for that tonight in Clemson. Right now, 7.5 for the Tigers. Wisconsin's 4.5-point favorites at Indiana. LSU minus 5.5 against Georgia. Kansas laying 6.5 against BYU tonight. And Florida State minus the 2.5 against NC State. I'll tell you right out front, Joe, I think BYU maybe can hang with Kansas tonight with that 6.5.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, let's keep in mind, they beat Baylor at home a couple games ago, 78-71. Game trended under. They then went on the road to face a very blue-collar Kansas State team and got kicked in the chops in the first half and never responded. Lost that ball game by double digits. So this is an opportunity to step up. Kansas got the cover over Texas. So, yeah, I could see that happening. BYU could be live. I have a system play tonight, and I told you Wisconsin on the road laying any wood is gutless. And more importantly, going into Bloomington against a beaten-down dog in Indiana, I think the Hoosiers are barking, baby. Give me the 4.5. Give me the Hoosiers plus the 150 on the money line. I think they win this ball game outright. Outright. Hoosiers. System play.
Wow.
System play for Lisi.
Outright for the Hoosiers tonight at Assembly Hall. How about that? I'm not going to go with you there. Not playing Wisconsin either. But I will be rooting it in for you, Joe, tonight on the radio. I do like Pitt with the points at Clemson as well with the 7.5. Despite, they got racked at Wake Forest. What was that last week, Joe, when Pitt got hammered there? Makes me a little leery, but a little, they need it so bad. Even if they come up short, I got a feeling they're going to be in the game, as DeCourcy was telling me earlier. So give me the 7.5 with Pitt. Let's hope so. Let's hope so. Texas visits Lubbock tonight. Maybe Joe McGuire will be in the crowd for the Red Raiders and the Longhorns. 3.5 for Texas Tech. Penn State visits Iowa. 163.5, Joe, for those two tonight. There, Vandy visits Arkansas, a very fat number for the Razorbacks, and Wake Forest road favorites at Notre Dame, who is not very good, and Wake should be able to cover that number on the road.
Back-to-back road games for Texas. I like the Longhorns tonight in terms of, going on the road to Lubbock. Not going to be easy. I think they could get the win. System play. System play. Vanderbilt plus the points over Arkansas. I was on Arkansas for the past couple of games. They beat up on Texas A&M last time out. They've been playing very well, but they should not be laying 10.5 to anybody. They might win, but give me the Commodores plus the 10.5 with Stackhouse. System play.
Yeah, what system is that? Where you anytime you're taking Vandy, I'll give you a system. Never bet Vandy. That's a system play for me,
That's
Joe.
the system.
Never bet.
You're
never
against
bet Vandy.
it, I'm on it. That's the system.
There you go. Never bet on Vandy. And finally, Mountain West late night. Bunch of games in the Mountain West tonight, including Boise, who is at Air Force. They're laying a big number on the road, 9.5. Utah State's laying a big number at Fresno. Colorado State minus 7.5 against Nevada. That's the best game out of those four. And San Diego State, another heavy lumber, 21.5 with the Spartans down there at Aztec Country tonight.
I like San Diego State under the 139.5. I think they might half court it, get out of Dodge. They've been trending to the over as well. Under the 139.5 is my best bet there. And I like Nevada plus the points over Colorado State.
Nevada plus the points. And, of course, tonight, Joe, on the radio show, we will attempt to find the obscure mid-major game of the night for us. Some good candidates tonight because you have the Missouri Valley in action tonight. Got some Horizon games. So I think that we'll be able to find something. I've already caught my eye, Joe, with the Valpo Northern Iowa game. Anytime you get Valpo and Northern Iowa involved, we'll do that tonight. On the radio side. So there you go. College rack. Let's go. Big night ahead. NFL Combine, Joe. Indianapolis, your favorite part of the show. Football talk. And really the best 2 days because you get all the GMs and the coaches talking today, tomorrow. A couple guys yesterday. I know McDermott talked yesterday for the Bills, but of course he said absolutely nothing. But there are some guys who did say some things, Joe, of significance. And the Chicago Bears are the team that everyone has their eyes on because they hold that first overall pick for the second year in a row. They got 2 picks in the top 10 this year, 1 and 9, thanks to that trade with Carolina last year. Will they keep Justin Fields? Will they not keep Justin Fields? Do they want Caleb Williams? So Ryan Poles is the guy everybody wants to hear from. First one, Joe. Here he is about having the number 1 overall pick for the second year in a row and the strategy that he's thinking about this year as opposed to last year.
No, I mean, it's unique, right? But I would say our approach is exactly the same in terms of we got to look at every option and determine what is best for our team. Obviously, we chose to trade back last year, and I think that helped our team out a lot. So, again, we'll do a deep dive and see how it plays out.
I just don't – whenever I hear that guy talk, I don't have a lot of confidence in him, Joe. I really don't as the general manager. I don't have a lot of confidence in Ryan Poles to make the right move here. Now, I think me and you have leaned to the keep Fields, trade down, get yourself 1 or 2 big wide receivers, whether you're able to get Harrison Jr., whether Adunze, etc., Neighbors, wherever you want to go. But he doesn't exude confidence, right, Joe? There's general managers that when you listen to them talk, you're like, this guy seems like he's got a plan. He seems like he knows what he's doing. I don't get that feeling with him.
He's got no plan, Carver. The team has no plan. I mean, think about what they had. They had a young quarterback last year, and the only offensive weapon that they drafted around him was Velus Jones out of Tennessee that was basically a marginal wide receiver and was 25 years old. Now you have an opportunity to pair him with another Buckeye in Marvin Harrison if you trade out of the top spot. And here's the thing. I mean, I understand they don't want to pay Justin Fields because of the money and the rookie deal. I get that. But here's the problem. You're hoping that Caleb Williams maybe evolves or progresses just the way Justin Fields did. Let's not forget, Justin Fields had games where he threw for multiple four touchdowns and 3 touchdowns. They have no offensive weapons. They drafted defense solely. So good luck with that type of mentality with Caleb Williams because he's going to need weapons as well. And if they're going to go defense, they're not going to win many games.
Now, he was pressed a little bit, Joe, in terms of when do you think you'll know what you're going to do. He said to one reporter tomorrow, and the reporter was like, no, seriously. And he looked at him. He's like, no, I wanted it done as soon as possible. He was then asked if he was looking to trade Fields, how long would that process take? He says, Joe, free agency starting in 2 weeks, he wants it done before then to give Fields a chance to go somewhere good. Here's Poles.
What is your, if you decide to draft a quarterback, what is your motivation to trade Justin before free agency starts, knowing that there might be a free agent market?
Yeah, again, it just depends on what opportunities pop up. I will say this, I think you guys know me well enough now. If we go down that road, I want to do right by Justin as well. No one wants to live in gray.
Sure.
I know that's uncomfortable. I wouldn't want to be in that situation either. So we'll gather the information. We'll move as quickly as possible. We're not going to be in a rush and see what presents itself and what's best for the organization.
Quickly as possible,
Sure,
but
Joe.
not in a rush.
As quickly as possible, but not in a rush. I want to do right by him. If they're getting rid of him, Joe, they don't care about doing right by Justin Fields.
They didn't do right by him when he was the starter. They didn't do right by him the starter. Yeah, DJ Moore was your biggest weapon, and I know the Bear
DJ
fans.
Moore's a good player. DJ Moore's a good player.
He's
Give
a
him
good
a break.
All right, DJ
He had
Moore
1,300 yards this year, Joe. I mean, he's not a stiff. He's a good player.
He's not Justin Jefferson. He's not Jamar Chase. He's not
there's only like 4 of those guys in the league, Joe.
You want me to keep going?
There's only a few of those guys. Those are special players you're talking about. Special players.
Exactly. And they had an opportunity to get that last year. They had an opportunity.
Well, they got another one now. If they then go take Harrison first. Forget the quarterback. Don't trade down. Take him first.
Get Neighbors.
Get Neighbors. Yeah, you get him at 9, maybe, Joe. You get Neighbors at 9. Get them both. Why not? All right, I got a couple more things for you when we come back. Ferrall Coast to Coast, Carver High and Joe in for Scotty. We're back. SportsGrid Radio right after this.
It's rare in this day and age of the NBA to, miss one player and have the wheels fall off.
They're kind of hanging on to one of those final play-in tournament positions in the Eastern Conference. And there are teams like the Nets and the Bulls and the Raptors who are right in that same vicinity, who now they're looking and saying, well, if the Hawks are without a player like Trae Young, and we talk about how important he is, averaging over 26 points.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Watched the final seconds of Illinois and Penn State, and my day's reaction, you think you know what happened there. How about that, Dave? How about that?
We're off the rundown. Sorry. Storm the court. You beat the 12th team in the country. That's fine. Second best in the Big Ten. That's fine. We are Penn State. Look at the crew jumping. This is so much fun.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Like the Minnesota Wild were down by 2 goals today. They were down by 3 goals, actually, today at one point. And they came back and won. Like teams like, the Edmonton Oilers and the Coyote game went back and forth. The NHL really, you could argue, really is the best sport for in-game betting, where you can pull the trigger on both teams.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
The Lakers lose by double digits last night on the road in Phoenix against the Suns. The Suns get their first victory following the All-Star break, winning by 10 in covering.
Anthony Davis played 42 minutes in that game. LeBron James played 37 minutes in a loss. This is the same thing. It's like repeating this over and over and over. Sure, do you want to win these basketball games? Yes, but you sort of say to yourself, all right, at what cost do we have?
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards, we are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And we are back for El Coast to Coast here on a Tuesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have you with us. BetMGM's at it again. They are giving away free money. That's right. How about betting $5 and getting $150 back instantly? That's right. What do you got to do? How about this? Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android or visit BetMGM.com. Sign up and deposit at least $5 into your newly created account. This is for new customers. Place a wager in the amount of at least $5 at standard odds price. Once you have placed a bet, you will receive $150 in bonus bets regardless of the outcome of your wager. You got to use bonus code SG150. That is SG150. BetMGM, they're doing it again, giving away free money. Bet 5, get 150. We love that on Coast to Coast. All right, Joe. So we'll move on now here, unless you have. I know we got cut off there. I was kind. You can't stand DJ Moore. That's just one of your guys that.
No,
I don't know why you think he's not on the upper echelon of guys that you just mentioned.
Exactly.
But he ain't a hack either. He had 1,300 yards. He had 10 plus touchdowns. He had a really good year. And he was part of a bigger deal. I thought he was a good piece that they added off of that deal, trading out of the first pick last year.
Great player. He's a good player. He's so good. You're right. But here's the problem. When we're talking about making an evaluation on Justin Fields, right? And what did Philadelphia do? They made the determination that Jalen Hurts could play in the league because they drafted Devontae Smith and they paired him with A.J. Brown. And then you saw the trajectory of Jalen Hurts' career, right? We talk about Kenny Pickett and the lack of success. They put playmakers around him, though, and he failed to step up, right? Look at all the great teams. I mean, even when Kyler was successful in the league, he had DeAndre Hopkins, one of the best wide receivers in the game. You can't talk about DJ Moore saying that he's a pure number one. I think he's more of a number two. And in his heyday, he's not a Stephon Diggs. He's not a Justin Jefferson. He's not a Chase Brown. I mean, go through the list. He's just not. CeeDee Lamb. I mean, I know those are elite players. But if you could get an elite wide receiver like that and pair him with DJ Moore, then Justin Fields then has nothing to say if he doesn't perform. But until you do that, how do you know if Justin Fields is not the face of the franchise? And especially when he had multiple games where he threw for over 250 yards and he went, 3 and 4 touchdowns in multiple games with that crew? Come on.
Look, we've said this. I would probably trade back.
Let me ask you that.
Around Fields and get some more stuff.
Fields is in Atlanta's offense with Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson, and the list goes on and on. You don't think he would have much better numbers than in Chicago with the human anchor, Matt Eberflus, and his former offensive coordinator, Luke Getsy? Now, run.
Wow.
Down 40.
A lot of that is who's calling the offense, though, is a lot of that. I mean, if it was last year with Arthur Smith, maybe not. I don't know. It all depends on who's calling the offense sometimes, Joe. That makes a big deal as well with all of this
You
stuff.
know what I
so
say?
We'll see.
You know what I say?
What do you say, Joe? What do you
say, you know what? Comanche, okay? Comanche. Go 5 wide Comanche. Old school, right? Any given Sunday. Spread them out and throw 4 verts. Comanche.
Everyone also loves throwing the smoke screens out in Indianapolis this week. Joe Shane the general manager for the Giants. First of all, Joe, there was that story yesterday that they did not plan on tagging Barkley. Shane said differently today. He actually said that that's still on the table, that there's still a chance that they could tag Saquon Barkley. He also gave you this gem, which I always love, is that we have all the confidence in the world that Daniel Jones is our guy. Here is Joe Shane.
So he actually started throwing. Yeah, Jordan, he actually started throwing. He's been throwing for about 2 weeks stationary now. He's not dropping back or doing any of that stuff. So he is on track. He's doing everything he can to get back. We're optimistic about where he is, and there's some talk in the spring that he may be able to go through, whether it's 7-on-7 or individual throwing routes in the air, that he'll be able to do some of that stuff. We probably won't expose him to team activities, but every patient responds differently to surgery. So, knock on wood, we haven't had any setbacks. He hasn't had any setbacks, and if he continues on that pace, he should be ready for the start of training camp.
Oh, wow.
I have faith in Daniel.
Oh, dude.
I have faith in Daniel as our starting quarterback.
Wow. Oh, there you go. He said it. There you go. He wanted clarification there, Joe. He didn't just want I have faith in Daniel. I have faith in Daniel as our starting quarterback. I don't believe him, to be quite honest with you. I don't believe him. I don't believe him.
Here's the thing. Joe Shane has to make a decision about the future of this franchise, right? They exceeded expectations in year one, and I said that was the worst thing for a New York team because then the fan base, there is no regression, right? You might get it for 1 year because of the injuries and what happened. They're not going to give you this year. They're going to want Brian Dable's head if he goes another 5-12 this coming season. And here's the other problem. Daniel Jones now has an injury issue. Okay, he could be as healthy as you want, but he's still got 2 neck injuries over the course of the last 4 years. We're not talking about a shoulder. We're not talking about a hamstring. We're talking about a neck where if he falls the wrong way, God forbid, he could get hurt again. And then what do you do in terms of that franchise if you don't have a contingency plan or a backup quarterback that could carry you through? And I'm not talking about Tyrod Taylor. I'm talking about a potential face of the franchise outside of Danny Dimes.
Could be very interesting, of course, with the Giants picking in the top 10 as well. Mike Evans is going to be one of the best wide receivers, maybe the best wide receiver, Joe, that's going to be available on the free agent market coming up in a couple of weeks. But Tampa Bay Bucs general manager Jason Licht is hoping that does not happen at all. He's hoping that he does not hit the open market. Here he is.
That was obviously out there. Decided to table him and then focus on the year. And, man, did he focus on the year. He had a hell of a year. And I'm happy for him.
Every year he's had a hell of a year.
And bet on himself, too. He's an unprecedented player that we want him to be a Buck for life. We're working towards that.
Buck for life.
Obviously it takes two sides. I know he wants to be a Buck, but, to get the deal done, we both probably have to strain a little bit, but we're working towards that right now. And, a good deal is always, it takes some time. So, for both sides.
You know who wants him to be paid too is Baker Mayfield, because Baker Mayfield put up numbers with those numbers.
Baker can go somewhere else too, Joe. They got to re-sign Baker as well. So
why would you? But why would you if you're Baker?
Well, you're right about that. Now, look, the offensive coordinator left for Carolina, so maybe that has a little something to do with it. But you're right. He had success there this year, and he had the first season in his career, Joe, where he played the entire year. He won. Everything was good. Even the year they played in the playoffs with Cleveland, he was out for games that year, was banged up. He was dragging himself around at the end.
Yeah, but Carver,
I'm with you. He should stay there.
He went from Cleveland to Carolina to the Rams to now.
That was in like a 15-month span too. You're right. If I was him, I'd want to hunker down as well,
but
be there for a little bit.
Why don't you? Why? You see, here's what I don't understand.
I agree.
You can draft a quarterback, but why not sign Baker? He proved to you he could be the guy. Finally, you have some stability there. And now, if it's going to be Baker, then you sign Evans. What are you doing? Like if you're going to let Evans and Baker go, you might as well just be in a major rebuild again. What are you doing?
They also are going to cut Shaq Barrett, one of their pass rushers, Joe. They'll save a little bit of money on the cap there as well to try to do some of those things. I saw Sean Payton this morning say that the Broncos will make a decision on Russell Wilson in the next 2 weeks. This is more nonsense, Joe. They made a decision on Russell Wilson, not even in December. They made a decision on Russell Wilson in like October. Remember when they wanted him to change the policy in his contract? They've wanted him out forever. You really think that he's going to be with the Broncos next year? There's no chance, Joe. None.
No shot. No shot. Absolutely none.
I agree.
Now, did you see the interview where Russell Wilson said that the reason why he was benched was not to play, it was because the no injury clause in his contract and stuff like that? It's that the NFL is a joke.
He also said he wants to win. He also said he wants to win 2 more Super Bowls in the next 5 years. I don't know where he's doing that,
okay.
but he said that in the interview as well.
Well, maybe as a backup, you could do that.
You do. They do give rings to the backup quarterback, Joe. You're right about that. That does happen. As long as you're on the team. Raheem Morris had the line of the day. I told you about it earlier. If the Falcons had better quarterback play, he probably wouldn't be the head coach in Atlanta. He's right about that. Arthur Smith would probably still had the job if the quarterbacks were just a little bit better there. Now that's an interesting spot, though, Joe. It's clear when he makes a comment like that they're in the market somewhere for a quarterback, whether that's drafting one, whether that's maybe going after, say, Kirk Cousins or something like that. They're clearly going to be in that market, and they're finished with the hacks that they have on the team.
Yes, but all right, so let's talk about that. You're right. I think they're in the market. I don't think they draft a quarterback because they went that route with Des Ridder, and I know, but they still took him in the 3rd round, Carver. 3rd round selection should be able to play. I mean, and he didn't pan out. Okay.
He's finished.
So you're gonna go for Cousins then? How many years are you gonna get with Cousins coming off the Achilles? 2 at most? And then if he gets hurt, then you're back to square one. They should go with Fields. Fields has upside. He's a young quarterback. He can develop with Pitts and Drake London and Bijan, just the way Jordan Love did in Green Bay. Let the kid cook. And you have the added dimension of the RPO game.
If I was a Falcon fan, Joe, that would be a home run scenario if they were able to get him. Because I don't think the cost is even that high. 2nd-round pick. I'd give up my 2nd-round pick if I was Atlanta to get my hands on Justin Fields. I know you got to pay him, like you said earlier with the Bears. I know you're getting close to paying him. But
you're
still,
not going to pay Cousins?
Yeah, you'd have to pay him for 2 years. So one way or the other, you're going to have to spend some money, as we know. And then it's also a lot of rule discussion there. All the competition committees are together. Browns and 2 other teams have proposed moving the trade deadline back 2 weeks. It's week 8 now, or at least it was this past year. They want to go back to week 10. I'm all for that, Joe. Anything that's going to potentially get me some more trades or give some more teams 2 weeks to find out that they're out of it, I'm all for it. Why not? Let's do it.
Why not? I think 2 weeks is beneficial. It gives them a better understanding about teams that are in the mix, out of the mix, and maybe players that they could get rid of or move on from.
And it doesn't sound like they're going to change that rule with the ball going out of the end zone. You heard a lot of people belly aching about that. The fumble through the end zone and giving it to the other.
I know.
That has been that way, Joe, since the dawn of time. That has been the rule for football,
so
with the fumble going out the other side.
Defense has no benefit. They make a play, the ball gets fumbled through the end zone.
Right.
You still want to benefit the offense on the 1 yard line. He didn't mean to fumble, but he did. It should have been out on the one anyway. I mean, give me a break.
That's precisely, Joe, what they want to do. Everything has to be geared to the offensive side of the football. Defense gets no advantages whatsoever, and that's the way that they like it. All right, Joe, we'll come back, and we'll wrap this up. There's a lot of hockey tonight. I do have a few games that we do have to bring up, and then we will wrap this puppy up, and we will get out of here. Ferrall, Coast to Coast on a Tuesday. Carver High and Joe for Scotty. We'll come back. SportsGrid Radio. Finish this one off right after this.
It's rare in this day and age of the NBA to, miss one player and have the wheels fall off.
They're kind of hanging on to one of those final play-in tournament positions in the Eastern Conference. And there are teams like the Nets and the Bulls and the Raptors who are right in that same vicinity, who now they're looking and saying, well, if the Hawks are without a player like Trae Young, and we talk about how important he is, averaging over 26 points.
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
We just watched the final seconds of Illinois and Penn State, and by Dave's reaction, you think you know what happened there. How about that, Dave? How about that?
We're off the rundown. Sorry. Storm the court. You beat the 12th team in the country. That's fine. Second best in the Big Ten. That's fine. We are Penn State. Look at the crew jumping. This is so much fun.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Like the Minnesota Wild were down by 2 goals today. They were down by 3 goals, actually, today at one point. And they came back and won. Like teams like, the Edmonton Oilers and the Coyote game went back and forth. The NHL really, you could argue, really is the best sport for in-game betting, where you can pull the trigger on both teams.
Sports Rage Late Night, only on SportsGrid.
The Lakers lose by double digits last night on the road in Phoenix against the Suns. The Suns get their first victory following the All-Star break, winning by 10 in covering.
Anthony Davis played 42 minutes in that game. LeBron James played 37 minutes in a loss. This is the same thing. It's like repeating this over and over and over. Sure, do you want to win these basketball games? Yes, but you sort of say to yourself, all right, at what cost do we have?
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start, so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
And we are back, Ferrall, Coast to Coast, here on a Tuesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty. Before we get out of here, Joe, there is a lot of hockey tonight. A couple really good ones, too. Vegas is in Toronto against the Leafs tonight. Leafs have been red hot, and they're minus 165 now here against Vegas. 6.5 is the total. Kind of like the over, Joe. Kind of like the over. Leafs have been scoring. How about Matthews to score tonight? It's probably not a great number. It's probably minus 110 or something like that. But he's been so hot that I lean to that, Joe, in the Vegas-Toronto game.
Yeah, you can get me in on the Leafs.
We can get you in on the Leafs. All right. We'll put him in a parlay, Joe. We'll put him with something else. Let's do a hockey money line parlay tonight. The Lightning are in Philly against the Flyers. Go ahead, Joe. What do you got for me with the
Are the Jets playing tonight? That's an automatic system play for me.
The Jets are playing tonight. I do have them in a moment for you. Tampa is in Philly against the Flyers here. Tampa's been playing well on this road trip. They're minus 135. You also have Dallas and Colorado. Game of the night for me, Joe. Dallas lost at home to the Islanders last night, which is a disgrace in itself. Now they're in Colorado, minus 145 for the Avalanche. Pittsburgh is in Vancouver late night. Canucks minus 155 in this one, plus $1.30 for the Penguins. Here are the rest of the games for you. Arizona, Montreal. Gabe said he liked Montreal earlier. Washington, who won last night. They've been playing pretty good hockey. They're in Detroit. Buffalo is in Florida against the Panthers. Ottawa is in Nashville against the Preds. Here are your Winnipeg Jets, Joe, as they are home tonight against the St. Louis Blues, minus 190 for that. The Kings are in Calgary and Devils are in San Jose. Quickly, Joe, what do you got for the Jet game? You're on the Jets or you're against them?
Oh, over 6.
Over, okay.
I'm going to alt it up to 7 plus goals.
We will be more in depth with the hockey tonight on Carver and Lisi. Joe, me and Joe will see you then, 8 p.m. East on SportsGrid Radio. Game Time Decisions is next. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Ferrall, Coast to Coast on the Grid. Have a good night.